So that's fine. I started. Chair, just to let you know, the stream has started.
They all thought it was so funny on Monday when I was not on screen, but they put a chair in place of me. Oh, it's
All right.
Hi, Chair. We're ready to start now. Apologies for the delay here.
That's okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this session of the Corporate Performance and Scrutiny Committee, 17th of January 2023. Before we get started, I'd like to just go through our general announcement. So can I remind everybody, please, that this meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when they're not speaking in order to avoid background noise when others are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand by using the remote raise hand function and request to speak button? And also, if seated in the chamber, they can raise their hand in person. If a participant raises their hand via the remote function and is not subsequently invited to speak by the chair, please could they then turn their camera on so I can see you to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of the chair and or the Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. Please ensure all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the state of this recording. The chat function, however, can be used to highlight any technical issues that you've had to be able to get the attention of the chair or the Democratic Services Officer. If participants have difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the chair or the Democratic Officer know. Please can I ask if anybody wishes to speak in Welsh in this meeting that they can indicate before they commence so that all of our members and those viewing online have got time to access that translation service prior to speaking. Thank you. If we move to agenda item 1 then, which is the apologies for absence, have we had any today?
Sorry, Chair. Before we start, just it's a matter of the obviously the introduction that you're given. As I understand it, the Welsh interpretation is automatically included online, so it's only for people in the room who will need to put their headphones on. Is that right? I'm just checking so that people don't at home or wherever they're accessing the meeting don't have to look around for anything else. Just have that confirmed.
I can confirm it'll be through the application that we're using online e-conference, and obviously in the room, people will need to use their headphones and translation device.
In that case, Chair, perhaps it's worth Democratic Services changing the explanation that's given at the start so that people know that they don't have to do anything, rather than because the way it sounds at the moment is that something affects people at home, whereas actually if they'll be listening in English anyway. I'm not sure whether the option's there for them to listen to the original Welsh, but maybe that's a discussion for another point.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. And yes, I'm sure that as time moves on, we'll be able to understand how this system works better. Today, I'm just reading out that script, and I'm not sure exactly how that interpretation would work for people at home. So we've had the Democratic Service Officer, Mark, explain that to us. So thank you for pointing that out. Can we now move on to apologies for absence, please?
Right, I've not had any through formally, Chair, so I don't know if members of the committee have any apologies they wish to share.
Thank you. No? That's marvellous. Okay then, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting that was held on the 13th of December 2023. This was in my absence, so can I ask members who were present to recommend the minutes that we've had are correct? Yeah, thank you, Ewan, and can we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That's great. If we move then on to the agenda item 3, which declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that in item 5, there's reference to community centre improvements. I understand that I'm a Vale of Glamorgan trustee at the Alexander Gardens Community Association, Margaret Alexander Community Centre. I understand that they're one of the community centres which are will be in receipt of this, but I have dispensation from standards to remain and vote. I don't know if other people are looking to do the same thing, but it might depend on whether they are not their community centre specifically involved in this practice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else with any declarations? Councillor Carroll.
So it was a separate one, Chair. I'm not sure if it's necessary to declare, but we'll do so. It's better to raise it than not. Item 4, I'm a local authority governor at Landock Primary School.
Thank you. That's great. Okay. Well, if there aren't any other...
sorry, I'm sorry, Chair, there's another one coming through now, Councillor Franks.
Thank you, Councillor Franks.
No declarations, and then they're like buses, they all come along, don't they?
Okay.
I also am not sure, but I'm erring on the side of caution in relation to improvements to community centres. I'm closely associated with Murchfield Community Centre, and I don't know if I have an interest or not, but I'm going to so declare just in case.
That's great. Thank you for doing so. And Councillor Lovelock Edwards, you have a hand up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm enthusiastically pressing the button too many times. Yeah, I'm going to follow fellow councillors' lead and declare erring on the side of caution. I'm a governor at Colcott Primary School. And item 4, and also in relation to community centres, I currently sit on the committee for Highlight Park Community Centre, but I'm not a trustee.
Thank you very much for that. And Councillor Drake.
Can you hear me?
I can. You're coming over loud and clear.
I also have to declare an interest. I'm a governor on Houghton Road School and Gladstone School. I'm also on the board of the trustees of the Castleland Community Centre. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to say, Chair, we have no more in the room, so I think we're good.
That's great. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for that. Right then, let's move on now to agenda item 4. This is a reference from Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee from the 11th of January 2024. It is the revised draft transgender inclusion toolkit and guidance document for schools and other settings. This has gone through a comprehensive consultation over the last year. Revisions have been made to the toolkit and the EIA, and now committee are being asked to consider the reviews of the respondents to the consultation and also those subsequent amendments to the toolkit. So I hope we've got David Davis and Jason Redrup to take us through. Yes, they're here. That's great.
Thank you,
Over
Chair.
to you.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you. The purpose of this report is to advise the Scrutiny Committee of the findings of the consultation on the revised Vale of Glamorgan Council's transgender inclusion toolkit and guidance documents for schools and the settings. The toolkit, which is referred to in Appendix A. Following approval from Cabinet on January the 19th, 2023, the Council undertook a consultation on its revised toolkit. The consultation took place between January the 23rd and March the 17th, 2023. And since the conclusion of the consultation period, all responses have been subject to careful and considered evaluation and amendments made to the toolkit, which is now contained in Appendix B. The responses have also been utilised to update the Equalities Impact Assessment, which is contained within Appendix C. The consultation responses and proposed amendments to the toolkit have been reported back to the relevant scrutiny committees prior to the matter being referred back to Cabinet for further consideration and determination. So the recommendation is that the report and appendices be referred to the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee for your consideration and any comment, with any recommendation being referred back to Cabinet. And the reason for this recommendation is to ensure that the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee fully consider the views of respondents to the consultation and subsequent amendments to the toolkit and equality impact assessment, and to ensure that the views of the committee are reported to Cabinet for their consideration as part of the decision-making process. There were 591 responses to the online survey. I'm not going to go through all the demographic of it because it's contained within the consultation report, but just over 50% of responses were from parents. There were around 100 responses to the survey from pupils and school-based staff, which represents 18% of respondents. In addition, face-to-face engagement with these groups took place, and this is all contained within Appendix D. The third highest response rate was from school governors at 8.1%. So with the consultation findings, there was significant support for the toolkit from the majority of school staff and pupils who were of the opinion that the guidance was vital in order to build inclusive and safe environments for young people. There were comments stating that the toolkit was too long and contained too much detail to be user-friendly, and the issues were also raised by a number of young people who felt the toolkit should be accompanied with an easy-to-understand document or a young person's infographic. As a consequence of this feedback, further work will be undertaken to develop an easy-read version of the toolkit once the final version of the toolkit is agreed and published. There were a number of parents who were fundamentally opposed the toolkit on the basis that they didn't believe it to be the role of schools to teach children and young people about relationships and sexualities, as this should be the role of parents. Some parents were also concerned that the toolkit should not be used in teaching primary age pupils, as they were considered too young to be exposed to such content. It should be emphasised that the toolkit is not a teaching resource, rather a guidance document for staff working in schools to assist them in supporting pupils identifying as trans or gender variant. It is not a resource to teach pupils of any age about relationships and sexuality. A small number of respondents were concerned that there was insufficient guidance in the toolkit about medical matters relating to gender transitioning. Other respondents, mainly those involved in education, expressed concern that they were being expected to provide medical advice and felt ill-equipped to provide this. These differing views were considered, and having taken advice from health safeguarding colleagues, the toolkit has been amended to advise that decisions and guidance about medical matters are made outside of the education settings by colleagues within the NHS. Concerns have also been raised that the toolkit focuses on championing the rights of trans and gender variant children and young people to the detriment of others who also have protected characteristics. The toolkit, in conjunction with other guidance documents, provides ideas for policy and practice that will keep all children and young people safe and help to create environments which help prevent and proactively respond to gender stereotypes. As a consequence of the consultation process, the guidance has been amended to emphasise that while it's extremely important to recognise that the Equality Act of 2010 protects from direct and indirect discrimination in respect of the protected characteristics of gender reassignment, it is of equal importance to recognise that similar protection is provided to persons with the following protected characteristics: age, disability, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy, maternity, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. In the consultation, schools expressed concerns about having to make these highly complex case-by-case decisions without any support to do so. However, the avoidance of unlawful discrimination often requires a case-by-case approach. The amended toolkit states very clearly that schools will not be expected to make these decisions in isolation and should seek advice from local authority officers who will provide support and guidance throughout the process. Consultation responses indicated that some parents were expressing significant concerns that the guidance to schools suggested that it was not always necessary to consult with parents when a child or young person indicated to school that they were transgender and wished to begin a process of social transitioning. School leaders also expressed concerns about supporting a pupil in this regard without the involvement of parents. In light of these concerns, the toolkit has been amended and the guidance now states clearly that schools should not support a learner to transition socially without involving the learner's parents in the process. If the pupil is not happy to involve parents, the school should not support the process. In exceptional circumstances where it's felt that there are strong reasons to be concerned about the implications of involving parents, schools must consult with a learning skills safeguarding officer who will advise on how to proceed or will seek further advice from a local authority designated officer. In addition, a number of comments felt that the toolkit was advocating that schools should automatically facilitate transition if this was the wish of the young child or young person. This was not the intention of the toolkit, which has now been amended accordingly. The toolkit now clearly points to the Cash Review's conclusions that social transition is not a neutral act and may have significant effects on a child or a young person in terms of their psychological functioning, and that a watch and wait approach is advocated in the school setting. The guidance now reflects this position and indicates that schools should adopt a supportive, flexible and responsive attitude to affirm a child's expressed sexuality and gender, whilst being sensitive to change over time. This will involve making appropriate adjustments and ensuring that the child does not face discrimination or bullying. The consultation process has been highly informative and the feedback has been considered fully and amendments made in response to strengthen the toolkit and enhance the guidance provided to schools. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you to all the officers who have spent an awful lot of time on this document. Thank you for the consultation, for listening to parents and to specialists, and also for this approved and improved document that we see before us. Committee, would anybody like to ask any questions? Thank you. Councillor Carroll, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jason, for the presentation. From the consultation report, Jason, I note that you've published a summary of the responses to the consultation, but unless I'm mistaken, you haven't published the comments. If that's correct, why was that?
Thank you. David Davis, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a decision based around the fact that not all of the comments would be suitable for public consumption, and we felt that it would be put people in a difficult position if all those comments were published. We've got the comments. We're quite happy to share them confidentially with people, but to put them out in the public domain, we didn't think was the right response.
If I may come back, why would it put people in a difficult position to publish them? I just think planning applications, for example, typically consultations of that kind, the comments would be published. Now, obviously, I could understand if you cited GDPR, but then personal data would quite likely be redacted from that. So it would be good to have some guidance on that. And I appreciate the offer of sharing them on a confidential basis. The reason I ask is that obviously, if you look at the responses, there is a disparity between the responses of parents and the responses of pupils and staff. And I think that the comments would help provide some context as to why that may have been. And so publication would have been beneficial for that.
Yeah, it was difficult. We thought long and hard about it, and we did discuss it with legal representatives, some of the comments are very what would you say? What would be the right word? Vulgar, bordering on unlawful, would create massive offence. Maybe fall into the bracket of hate. And to share those, I don't think would have been in the best interests of anybody, really.
I mean, I just think there's a bit of a fine line there in terms of, obviously, if a comment was unlawful, it was against the law, then that's one thing. But obviously, what one person finds offensive, another may not. Now, obviously, I get the comments, and if there was something particularly that you were concerned about, perhaps that could be redacted, or indeed, if there were an issue where you felt that some people may be offended by certain contents, then perhaps a warning could be issued at the start. I just think that it would have presented a better picture if the sentiment of the comments were published, because, as I said, there is a disparity there in that sort of, if you look at parents' comments, for example, I think 33% were positive, 15% offered suggestions for improvement, and 52% were deemed negative. So that's over 2/3 didn't have a favourable view of the toolkit as was drafted, whereas you look at the responses from pupils, and it's quite different. So I think it would be beneficial for the public when viewing this consultation to have an insight into that. And I think that I get the point that you're making about perhaps certain comments being inappropriate for publication, but I would assume I'm right in saying that the vast majority didn't fall into that category.
Yeah, absolutely. The vast majority didn't, and were very informative. It's not quite correct to say that the majority of parents were against the toolkit. On all the different aspects, more parents were either in favour, agreed, or strongly agreed or agreed than strongly disagreed or disagreed.
Thank you, David. Councillor Hanks, you have your hand up?
I do. It just takes me a little time. Can you
That's
hear
okay.
and see me?
We can.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, really, when Welsh Government are bringing their toolkit guidelines out, and when we were hoping to publish and roll out this toolkit to our schools locally, please.
Thank you.
I respond? Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Yeah,
please
thanks
do.
for that. I was actually in a meeting with Welsh Government officials, myself and Jason, in a meeting this week, and their feedback was that they were hoping to go out to consultation around Easter time, and then with a view of publishing whenever they concluded that consultation, but there was no time frame on that. We are now looking, subject to going through the process now, to publish this toolkit as soon as is possible. So this month or next month would be our timescale.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I just say, in terms of the Welsh Government, then in our discussions, what we would hope would be, once an all Wales document was established, then obviously we would be looking to adopt that as a way forward. We wouldn't want to stand separately to something that had been agreed on an all Wales basis. But I think in terms of the timescale, if they're only going to consultation in April, then it could take a significant amount of time, like it's taken us from the consultation process to get to a position whereby we hope to have adapted and the toolkit sufficiently so that it was a very reasonable, fair document that reflected the interests of all those people who contributed to the consultation, and one which we hope now can be seen to be protecting the rights of everybody, and a document which is in the interests of all young people. And shouldn't be just seen in terms of protecting one group, because we're very clear in the document that this is a document which seeks to balance the rights of all young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, I think you're next.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. I'm just going to give people in the room a moment to listen to the interpreter. Ti hyn yn gweithio?
Is this working for everybody?
Thank you.
I'll make a start. Got a number of comments I would like to make on the document. Firstly, thank you very much to the staff for coming again with the document after the consultation. It's of course taken quite a bit of time to reach this point after the consultation came to an end last March or last Tuesday. A couple of points about the document in front of me, but not necessarily just had a quick notification. Not necessarily about the outcome of the consultation, if that makes sense. So a couple of points. I was present in a corporate parent meeting, and there was a point as part of the recommendation. We had a bit of conversation at that point, but unfortunately the papers weren't available for the meeting in question, and I was expressing opinion at the time, but there's not been too much change, as far as I'm aware, to the part specifically referring to the corporate parent and children being in the care of the council. I listened to the conversation last week in a culture and learning committee, and that was an interesting conversation to hear the comments from a number of people. A number of points were made about the document in front of us. One point, there's no reference to the corporate parent as part of the stakeholders, and I made that point in the last meeting about this. Another point to make is it's difficult for me. It's good practice, I would say, when you go out for a consultation and you make changes, to have a list to see exactly where the changes are. And I don't know whether we'd be able to suggest this, whether this would be possible, whether David and Jason may refuse this, but it would be helpful, I would say, to see where the changes are between Appendix A and Appendix B, the original version and the revised version. I think this would be useful because I'm not necessarily opposing the changes introduced, but I'm not exactly sure where they are in the 70-page document. It's difficult to look at both documents alongside one another and to see the changes. It makes sense to me to this is a guidance document for teachers in schools to help them to deal with the challenges. This document was originally, well, teachers originally asked for this. That was why it was originally created in 2018, and that's why it needs to be revised. And that's what we have before us. So I see the need for the document. I think there's room for there to be an easy read version for young people to help them to understand the implications of the guidance for them and to understand better what they may expect from schools in terms of how schools treat them and what types of rights they have and what they can expect in terms of rights from schools. I think it makes sense to include parents within discussions where appropriate, because gender reassignment is not an easy process.
Sorry, Councillor Johnson, are you continuing?
Unfortunately, Chair, Councillor Franks next to me is having a bit of feedback, and I can hear myself coming out of his computer, so I'll continue with the valid points I was making about the report before us. It's not a neutral thing to make a decision, and I think there is room for parents to be part of the decision of their children to do this. And of course, there's also room for when difficulties may arise for local authority safeguarding officers to participate to help to resolve this, because obviously it's not something which can happen, especially for young children, without parental support. There was an interesting discussion last week around the Gaelic competence and how mature children are in terms of taking part in decisions with regards to this. And this is a relevant discussion, but if it's something which is happening within the school, of course, would make every effort possible to look after the needs of children and to make sure that it works for the benefit of everybody. So I'm happy with the changes, but it's just not easy for me to identify where they are in the document, and I'd like to see this when it comes back to Cabinet. So I'd like to make this as a recommendation to Cabinet. And one other point in relation to the analysis, and we heard from Councillor Carroll earlier about publication of the comments. I don't have an opinion either way. I'm happy with a breakdown, looking at whether things are positive or negative, or what's important is being able to make recommendations to improve the document, and that's why the process is so important. But I do note in the presentation earlier, there was talk of almost 20% of responses from pupils or staff working in schools, and it's very likely from Appendix D at the bottom, number of pupils. I'm not totally clear because of the colours, and I'm not sure sometimes whether I'm colourblind with this, but it seems as though there's a very low number in terms of pupils in comparison to the number of pupils in schools. So I wanted to ask whether we are happy that pupils themselves have had a genuine opportunity to respond to the consultation, because it seems likely that a lot of adults have been putting forward their views on the content of the document, but we're not sure whether we are getting the pupil voice. I note the relatively high number of people of trans people, people living in a gender different from that in which they were born, which is significantly higher in this document in comparison to the number in the census. It says some 7.5% from trans respondents, which is some 40, a large number from the total. But I am concerned that we're hearing a strong adult voice and perhaps not so much a pupil voice. Again, I think we could go further in terms of explaining the experience of teachers and schools of the guidance previously and where this is better, because to me the purpose of revising guidance is to make improvements on where we were. So what were the lessons that we learned from the 2018 document? Were problems being fed back? Were teachers or head teachers or people involved in safeguarding responding to this and helping with producing and coordinating the new document? And the last point, Chair, this is a process which has been about a year in, arriving at the point where we can publish something which we are hopefully happy with. So it's quite ironic that now Welsh Government is coming back to say they are intending to consult on the same field, and then we will adapt our guidance to complement what they publish after their consultation. It's disappointing that, I don't know the metaphor, but grasping the nettle earlier in the process, because when we launched our guidance 6 years ago now, and published 5 years ago, it's odd that to hear from officers tonight that Welsh Government is intending to address this at such a slow pace, and I'm not sure what the implications of this are, because we've gone through this process and it's possible now that we'll be changing this in a year or 18 months. I note there's a number of questions there for the officers, but if they can respond, and I'll bring something back up if they missed anything. Thank you. And thank you to the translator too.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That was quite a long list of things. So I'll ask David if he can comment on the first one, which was about the corporate parenting and the reference to them. You might be pleased to know that in our agenda conference, I asked for the list of changes. So I think that is definitely something that we can recommend, so we can easily see the changes that have implemented since the review. Can I hand over to you, David?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, and thank you for the broad support to the toolkit as it's and the the reviewed toolkit. In terms of corporate parenting, that is an error, and we would seek to amend the report. It's not on that list, and also apologies for the fact that the papers weren't provided. I'm not sure why that was the case. I must admit, Chair, it sends shivers down my spine thinking that we would need to go back to the toolkit and identify all the amendments that have been made over the course of the year. This has gone backwards and forwards so many times to different audiences and been changed so many times that I fear that would be really, really difficult. what we tried to do in the report was to identify the key changes, and obviously I take on board what you're saying, Councillor Johnson and Chair, about how that might be easier to go through. And in hindsight, that would probably be a better approach. But at this point in time, that would be really, really difficult. In terms of the young people, yeah, in terms of the consultation, the amount of young people who responded individually to the consultation, it was disappointing. But we did meet in this chamber with the school council network, which is sort of which are representatives of all the school councils for all the schools in the Vale, and we presented the toolkit and had a really, really in-depth, very interesting and very informative discussion with them, who were really supportive of the toolkit. And I know that they had, prior to coming to that meeting, had also been in consultation with various equalities groups within their schools. So I think we got a good overall understanding from young people. And I have to say, what it showed to me, that young people are far more ahead of the game and more enlightened than old people like myself on these issues. And it was very refreshing to hear their views, and I think we're in good hands going forward in future when it comes to the equalities agenda. We do, though, recognise that we need an easy read version, and that is going to take place. The key thing about that is that it's going to be young people that are working with us. We've already talked to with our youth service about them leading on that with the young people in the Vale. I'm struggling to remember now. Can I be prompted on other the other?
A good point Councillor Johnson made was whether within the background that we could reference the experience of teachers, not just the fact that they asked for this document and the toolkit in the first place, but what they had said about it that also would have prompted the improvements.
From the consultation? From the consultation responses, or I mean the key issue around for school staff was around greater understanding, and the section around terminology they thought was really helpful. One of the things that concerned school staff is the case by case basis of having to make decisions. And the fact that they felt that they may be left exposed by that, and that was one of the key changes in the revised toolkit, is that we're very, very clear that treating these cases as on a case-by-case basis is absolutely unavoidable. That is the nature of equalities law, and equality decisions around equalities is a case of balancing what the rights of everybody and coming to a decision based on what is in front of them. But what we're very, very clear about is that they will not be left to do that alone. And we certainly strengthened the document by actually referring to named members of staff within the local authority that would support them in making those decisions. I think the key thing is that without this toolkit, school staff will be left to make those decisions without any guidance whatsoever. They're going to have to make these decisions. Can't bury our heads in the sand that these decisions won't need to be made. This toolkit will help them to make those decisions in an informative way and protect them from possible challenge, not make them more susceptible to challenge, which is which is some people are interpreting that in that way, but that clearly isn't the case. And the feedback from schools is that they welcome that. I feel like I'm rambling around now. Is that okay?
Thank you. No, yeah, of course, of course. I think we'll move on to Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. I know you've been waiting for some time. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. There's some points need to be addressed. I just want to make a few comments in terms of the overarching principle of this document and why it's so important. Is that our duty of care, and I think the officers have already referenced that. In that we have to, remember the principle of the duty of care, irrespective of the changes to legislation, and I think that's why it's important that referencing a comment that Councillor Carroll made, it is just not in the principles of that duty of care. Councillor Johnson referenced that this document has actually been in the hands of us as an organisation since 2018. So this isn't the first time that we're seeing a document like this, and obviously it's been hugely important to so many individuals. And I think the other point I want to sort of state is I'm very clear as a councillor that this is not a teaching resource for teachers, and certainly not a teaching resource that the pupils will be relying on teachers. It's a guide, and we have an obligation to teachers, to those professionals, to the pupils, to the parents and carers, that there is a guide in situ, so that there is a consistent approach taken, that pupils, parents and staff alike can talk on an individual basis as and when the need arises, without any hint of any objections or any sort of vulnerabilities. And I think it's hugely significant that we as councillors are mindful of our duty of care to it in terms of the language that we use and the support that we give to this toolkit, because it is a guide, it's a resource. And right now there are lots of vulnerable young people and adults alike who are looking to us as an organisation to provide that support. And I think this toolkit, it's a living document, it's a working document, so I welcome the changes and obviously some of the comments that have been made in terms of ensuring that we are can keep abreast of those changes as we move forward. But nevertheless, it's a vital toolkit that I think that if we were not to have it, we would be poorer on so many grounds, and we would be absent in our duty of care to so many individuals at a critical time when they need it right now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wood, you're also waiting to speak. Councillor Wood, we can't hear you. I see you've got your hands up. No. I think the technology might have failed you there. Councillor Haynes, you're there? Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. A few questions or comments, if you don't mind. I'll take them one at a time because it's easier. I noticed a diocese had been added to the stakeholders. Were all religions consulted as stakeholders?
Thank you for that question. Jason, would you like to respond?
With regard to consultation, the diocese meetings which are held termly with both Catholic and Church in Wales were held because the vast majority of our schools are Christian or Catholic in faith, and a vast majority but as well as that consultation, there was consultation with minorities across with the Vale in the consultation with the organisation members of the Vale Glamorgan Equalities Consultative Forum. So I believe there's members within that group of that faith, but there was no direct consultation with other faiths now.
That's a missed opportunity, if you ask me. Personally, I must say I'm not religious, but if you're going to ask one set of religious people a question, I think you should have gone to all of them. And I think it sets us up to be accused of not being inclusive. But moving on to my next point, if I don't mind. Under conclusions, you state, although the charts demonstrate the majority of respondents agree with the trans inclusion toolkit and its contents overall, there are some concerns from parents about this subject and how schools approach it. Some of this can be based on misinformation and misunderstanding. Now, I find nothing in the report that backs that statement up. And I don't think it should be in the report if it's not proven or can be proven.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. David, would you like to respond to that one? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're coming a little bit full circle back to the point raised by councillors earlier. It's again, some of the comments and very few of the comments were clearly ill-informed would be a nice way to put it. And I know that people can say, well, what's one person's ill-informed is another, but I would beg to differ on that, given some of the nature of the comments. The other part of that, which is addressed in the report, is that many parents were commenting on it based on the premise that this was a teaching resource and that they didn't want their children to be taught this within schools. So that's where the report addresses that, because that is in terms of a misunderstanding, because this is a guidance document for professionals to be able to work with young people. It's not a teaching resource, and there is statutory guidance around teaching, which is the RSE curriculum, which is a different issue to a toolkit, which is a guide to support professionals working with young people. So that was what was being misinterpreted by parents in that respect.
I understand.
Thank you, David.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I understand your standpoint, but again, it's going to look as if you didn't like the comments, what someone said, so therefore they're being told they're misinformed. And if you're not willing to prove the things in the report, I do believe that shouldn't be in there. But I'll move on. Regarding your teaching aid, saying it's not a teaching aid, which is a fair point. Yet you're going to produce a document which you're going to hand out to students. People are then going to think it's a teaching aid. Either it's a document for the teachers or it's a document for students. I can't see how it can be both.
Thank you.
I think, shall I respond? I think that it still won't be a teaching. It will be handed out to young people, but it could be help young people to understand the context and the law and their position within that and their rights. Not a teaching resource, but it would be tried to done in a way, because it's very, very complex, and the legal situations are really complex for everybody to understand, and the young people are well capable of understanding them. But in terms of the younger age group as well, it would need to be made just clarified, I think, and for their involvement as well. Jason,
can I just add to that? I mean, obviously, as we've mentioned, it is therefore useful for teaching professionals to inform policy and procedure. We also obviously naturally encourage schools, when they are placing policies and procedures there in schools, that the child's voice is heard in that policy and procedure. So therefore, for the child to fully understand the topic they're talking about, that it needs to be made available in a more child-friendly version, so they're able to contribute to the formation of policies and procedures. We do this with anti-bullying policies, with safeguarding policies, children involved and their voices heard in the formation of that policy. So there's a need for that as well.
May I come in, Chair?
Thank you. Yes, certainly. Councillor Goodjohn.
Thank you. First off, I just want to raise the point on RSE and education. The Chair allowed me in. I apologise, Councillor Haynes. You're welcome to go if you had more points.
There was one more point.
Fine. Chair, can we bring Haynes back in? I was not aware he was not done.
Oh, right. Sorry. No, and I certainly didn't hear that either.
No. Can Haynes come back in just to confirm?
Can he do so? Yes,
Yeah.
certainly. I can't.
Thank you, Chair. Final point, and I left the most important one to last. I'm concerned that teachers are going to be left very vulnerable, particularly about the point of single-sex spaces. Looking through this document, all I can find in there is references to the law, which is great. It's handy to know where you are with the law. But single-sex spaces is where teachers are going to be most easily caught out, and they need guidance on this fact. Toilets, changing rooms, school trips away, they could easily be put in very difficult situations, and the only advice they've got is to ring us up on a case-by-case state basis. Some broad guidance would be very useful on that. Thank you, Chair. That's my final point.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Jason, would you like to come back in then on that matter why we can't have
absolutely.
guidance?
Absolutely. As we've tried to explain through the document, and when we're looking at cases of unlawful discrimination or safeguarding, with safeguarding in particular, you need to look at the facts presented to you, and which will inform a risk assessment. And each set of circumstances will differ. At certain times, there'll be higher levels of risk, which may need more mitigation. So to have a broad direction on what should be applied, I just wouldn't work. I mean, I'm regularly presented with different scenarios with pupils who may have transitioned 5 or 6 years ago and are going on a school trip to a pupil who transitioned last week. I have had those examples. And the advice and guidance I gave was different, because you have to treat each one on the circumstances and the risk and how you mitigate that risk, or if there is risk. And so that is why we do advocate that it has to be on a case-by-case basis, and that schools won't be left alone to make these difficult decisions, that the local authority, both myself and if necessary the LADO, the local authority designated officer, will be there to help support them with that decision-making process.
Thank you. So in summary, you're providing more support by doing it on a case-by-case basis and giving them that personal help and discussion rather than having a general guidance document. Thank you. Councillor Ewan Goodjohn.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the point on RSE, I just want to make some assurances. I think it's perfectly reasonable to see that this is a guidance document that schools can turn to if a situation arises where they don't know what to do, which we were told was very often. That's what this is. It's not to be brought out all of the time. Then we have an easy read document that if we're in that situation, young people can see what the schools are expected to do as well, and young people can put their voice in as to what they would expect schools to do, because young people have a right to be involved in these decision-making processes. I think that's what we're talking about, to be absolutely clear. When it comes to RSE, Councillor Haynes is welcome to come to the SAC meetings, the Standing Advisory Committee on RSE effectively, and have joined those conversations if he is concerned. And that is an important forum for these things to be brought out rather than in a guidance document like this. That's what it's there for. So if he wants more information on that, he's welcome to talk to me after the meeting. Additionally, I think when it comes to the consultation on from young people, I was there at the joint school council network meeting, and I think the viewpoint was very clear from pretty much every pupil there who spoke, that the guidance document, while an important tool for schools and important that young people know about it, there's only so far that the council can go at the moment within the law into support that can be provided. And young people are very aware of the situation and very aware of what's going on for trans people in our communities and wants to see further action that we cannot necessarily do. But what it did do was it gave them a good viewpoint to go, well, hang on a moment, are these support networks available for us? And what they went back and did is they went back to their schools and started setting up further support networks for themselves within those school councils. So that was extremely impressive to see, and I'm so proud of it. But it's sections that we cannot necessarily intervene in. So there was, although it was important to have young people's voices in it, I don't think it was necessarily as important for the document's sake within the legal challenges that we were facing, that those particular points were brought in. So generally, it was very supportive at the meeting, and generally anyone I've spoken to about it, any young person, has been very supportive. It's just, where are we getting the information from? Where are the concerns coming from? And if generally young people aren't concerned at the moment, I'm not too concerned with the level of consultation. I think it's been rather broad for what we need at the moment. But I'm really glad to see about the Easy Read document. I think that'll be very positive. I just want to make a quick point regarding parents, because I don't want to misinterpret what we were told by parents, because in the document we are consistently seeing parents as different to how pupils were seen, and how staff saw the document. But that is not to say that parents were hugely opposed. It was very split on a lot of different items, but for the vast majority of the consultation, parents were in agreement with the document. Parents were in agreement with the approach taken for kids, safety, and the approach for schools to be effective. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with that. I don't think we can be blind to the fact that there is discrimination within our society, and in that situation, when you come out with a toolkit that says trans inclusion on it, you are going to get some responses that is discriminatory, and we need to be perfectly aware of that. And I don't think you can easily say you can't back up that there was misinformation or discrimination within those comments. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say, even without seeing the full consultant, although that will be interesting to see the full responses privately and confidentially. I don't think that's at all an unreasonable thing to say. So that's my thought process. I'm really glad to see this document come back. I know how hard this has been for the team and for the legal department as well. So to see this come back is very important, and even if it can support just a few cases over this next year and a half, 2 years, however long it takes for Welsh Government to get through their document, their consultation process, in my opinion, it's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Councillor Wood, I can see you have your hand up. Oh. Can you, I can't hear you if you are talking. No.
Chair, we have been behind the scenes trying to get Councillor Wood online.
Yeah.
But he has told me, because I have asked him, has he got anything else to add to what's been said? And he basically said most of the discussion that he wanted to raise has already been raised. But we'll obviously have to deal outside the meeting with any issues that he may be having. It could be broadband, we don't know, but we'll have to look at that at another time, unless he can come on during the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, everybody. Councillor Cole, I can see you might want to speak again, but we have had a very full and robust debate on this, and you have already spoken once. Is this something in addition that you need to say, or are you?
Yeah, I'll be very brief, Chair. It's basically comes back to where I started from. I think the point you made about the comments potentially being ill-informed and the other references to people's views being discriminatory, I think that demonstrates why we need to see the comments, because I've had concerns about this toolkit throughout the process. I had constituents approach me about this and I went to see them. I mean, I can tell you with certainty that those constituents weren't ill-informed or discriminatory. They had, or expressing views that were discriminatory, they had genuine concerns about it. And when we see that line in the conclusion of the consultation document that it could be based on misinformation or misunderstanding, it's important that we don't make sweeping statements about people's views that are sincerely held. And when you're making a statement and attributing it to comments that we haven't then seen, it's difficult to justify that. So I do think it would be helpful for us to see those comments, at the very least in a confidential manner. But that's all I have to say on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. And I'm pretty sure that in the beginning, that was something that was offered to us as individuals. But we have to accept, especially as the team have taken legal advice, that there are comments amongst them that are not suitable for the public. And I think we have to accept that if the legal advice is don't do that. But I think, David, would you like to just come in on that? But we are able to see these in confidence. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the point I wanted to make really is that I don't want that comment to be misrepresented in terms of that in some way the views of parents have been ignored or demeaned in some way. The vast majority of parental responses were helpful and were based around their concerns about not being involved in the process. Yeah. They were taken very, very seriously, and as you can see, the toolkit now reflects those concerns. So it would be wrong to portray. If that, I'm not saying that is, but I would certainly would not want it to be portrayed that we had in some way demeaned the views of parents. But like Councillor Goodjohn said, there is an element within society whose views would not be deemed to be acceptable. I could tell you those. I could give you those now, but I don't think that would be in anybody's best interests. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just to further to what David said, just to try and give assurance that myself and David examined every single comment that was made, as well as the analysis, and considered whether how we interpreted that comment, whether be it positive, negative, or neutral, and considered on what we could do about that comment and could it contribute to improving. And as David did that to say, that is why we went to such lengths with, particularly the grouping of those comments, a lot of time with around parental involvement was one element, and the Gaelic was another element with it. So those views very, very, very much listened to on an individual comment basis.
Thank you for that. Well, I think that that's been a very robust debate. Thank you for committee members for sharing all of your opinions, because it's all relevant. Councillor Birch, I think, would you like to round off the session with us? Thank you. You're on mute. You're on mute. I can't hear you. Oh, I think we might have lost her. We'll give her a minute just in case she's trying to come back in.
We're just checking the system now, just to see if Councillor Birch is still on, Chair. Bear with us.
Thank you.
Looks like she's still on, Chair. Hopefully she's just trying to get her audio sorted. So we'll just give her a minute or two.
Okay. We'll give her a minute. Thank you. You are? Councillor Birch, can you? We can see you.
We still can't hear Councillor Birch.
No, I can't hear her online either.
Okay, she's requested to speak again.
No, I can't. We can't hear you, unfortunately. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Am I override?
Hang on. Sorry, Councillor Birch, have you been using your headphones at all? Because I can see you've got your headphones on. Is it? Can you speak for those? Are you able to speak for those? Is that what it might be worth?
Just put it back in now. That might not work.
We'll try it now.
No.
Right, we're still not getting any audio, Councillor. Sorry.
In that case, can I make a recommendation, please, that the report be endorsed by this committee and referred on to Cabinet along with all the comments that was made today?
Thank you for that, Councillor Goodjohn. We will certainly be doing that. Councillor Hanks.
It's going to second that. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So those recommendations, as Councillor Goodjohn has just injected, they were that committee considers and notes the content of the
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, Chair. Councillor Carroll, I believe, wants to come back in just briefly before we finalise recommendations.
No, I was just going to say I wouldn't be happy to endorse, so I would wish to vote against that if that was put to a vote.
So you want to vote against the contents of the consultation?
The recommendation was made to endorse the report. Now,
right.
I thought this was a reference, so we wouldn't be endorsing it. But if there is a...
Sorry, just for context, obviously he's gone to Learning Culture. We've had it referred on to us, so it's really for us to then ask Cabinet to go back to Cabinet just to finalise it if we endorse it. But obviously
we're not at that point yet, are we, in the process?
No.
Okay. Can I come in then and recommend that we note and that we refer all comments to Cabinet?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to do. Thank you, everybody. Right, so can we go back to the recommendations and just follow the process? That would be helpful. Thank you. So we start with the committee considers and notes the content of the consultation responses, the revised transgender inclusion toolkit and guidance document for schools and other settings, and the equality impact assessment. Recommendation 2 was that the report and appendices be referred to the Corporate Performance Procedures Committee meeting, which it has been, for our consideration and our comments, with any recommendations to be referred back to Cabinet. And the third one was the report and appendices be referred to the Corporate Parenting Panel for their consideration, which I believe has already taken place. It was a couple of days before. And any comments be referred back to Cabinet. Can I just check that with you, Mark? Had they already seen this?
I haven't seen the report.
Has the Corporate parenting panel already seen this report?
Yes, it's noted on the reference.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Hang on, I think Councillor Eddie Williams is coming in. You're muted, Councillor Williams.
Yes, I think I can't hear Councillor Williams either. So I think we'll just say that if this report and appendix hasn't been referred to the corporate parenting panel for consideration.
Chair,
just to say that as a member of the corporate parenting panel, this was discussed by us on Monday, the 8th of January. As I noted earlier while speaking, one of the challenges was that unfortunately it wasn't included in our bundle of papers, but further information has been provided to us. I don't know if that's exactly what Councillor Williams was going to say, but it has been to corporate parenting panel already, therefore there's no need for it to be referred further, because for time purposes this needs to go to Cabinet for their final decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you ever so much, Councillor Johnson, for confirming that. Fantastic. So can we now have a hand to move after this very full and robust debate? Thank you, Councillor Hamilton, and seconder. And do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
That's great. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 5. And that's the Project Zero update report, which is the report of the Chief Executive. And I think we have Susanna here today to take us through this report. Oh, we don't. We have Helen and Tom. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, committee. Thanks very much for taking this report. Helen and I are going to do a bit of a double act, if that's okay, in presenting the report and then taking any questions. And Helen's going to kick off in the presentation.
Thank you. So I'll just quickly give an overview of the content of the report then in terms, because it is quite a detailed report in terms of the progress report. And we do bring these twice a year to both this committee and Environment and Regeneration Committee, and it was considered last night by that committee before it's considered by Cabinet. This report covers the progress with regards to the work on Project Zero and the challenge plan between April and September of last year. And as within the summary on the report, it sort of covers that in terms of the Appendix A is the sort of very detailed account of the different work that's been taken across the council, across the many challenges and steps within the plan. We've introduced a RAG status to help assist in terms of identifying the levels of progress across different activities, and that was something requested by this committee. So we've introduced that, which has meant that we've had to put in a bit more detail about the 80 underlying steps that support the programme, where previously we might have merged some of the progress to enable that RAG status to work. And again, that kind of shows the progress within the 6-month period and whether it's as we expected. The report also contains information regarding our carbon emissions as they're reported to Welsh Government, and then also in terms of how the programme management is being taken forward and the use of the finances associated with the programme of work. And that sort of is also then reflected within the recommendations in terms of those points within the plan. So as members will be aware, the Council declared the climate emergency in 2019, and then we approved the challenge plan in 21. At the same time, we also declared a nature emergency. And the plan reflects the work that's needed both towards the 2030 public sector target in terms of net zero, but also work towards 2050 as well. So it's quite a broad range of activities within the plan in terms of both what we undertake as an organisation to improve our own emissions, but also how we support work across the community as well within that. In section 2 of the report, what we've done is we've reflected on the concerns raised when the last report was considered, and we've provided responses against each of those issues raised there, and they've been provided by relevant people across the organisation. So we've got issues there around sort of the waste issues, the carbon management plan in terms of how that will assist us with prioritisation as work goes forward. And then what we've also done is we've pulled through within the plan some of the examples from the detailed appendix to give an indication of some of the work that is being taken forward across all the elements of the challenge plan. So as I say, in terms of things like reporting on our carbon emissions, the work on the Thor project that we've got funding for, work on our local area energy plan and our green infrastructure strategy, some of the engagement work that's been taking place with young people, and then also some of the work around procurement and with housing as well. As I say, the report itself is pulled together with contributions from officers across the council to reflect the diversity of work that is being undertaken as part of our work on climate change, which again was part of the reason we brought the Project Zero work together, to make sure we were having that more coordinated approach to the work that we are taking. 2.4 just sets out, as I say, within the programme management, some of the progress. So that's the introduction of the RAG status, the process that we've introduced for considering expenditure of the Project Zero reserve, and we'll talk a little bit about the finances. And then in 2.5, we detail some of the carbon reporting, and there is a link then to a little bit more detail about that. We've explained that the methodology from Welsh Government for doing that has changed between years, so we take that into account in terms of looking at what the figures are telling us there, but we are seeing a reduction in our emissions there as well. And at the moment, Susanna and Anne from the property team are having discussions across the council in terms of what that might mean for individual directorates and services to explain that data and interrogate the data in a little bit more detail there as well. So as I say, the Appendix A then goes through in a lot more detail all the different activities and introduces that RAG status to hopefully provide members with more information about the scale of the work being undertaken and the progress within the 6 months between April and September. And I'll just hand over to Tom, who'll just a bit more about some of the report on the finances.
Brilliant, thank you, Helen. And yeah, just following on from what Helen's been describing, section 2.5 onwards of the report gives members, at the request of the committee, some more detailed information regarding the financial arrangements to support this piece of work. So members will be really aware of the range of different reserves that have been established in order to support the Project Zero work. So a Project Zero reserve itself, but also a number of other associated reserves, and they're set out in a table showing the opening and closing projected balances against those corporate reserves. We've also, as Helen said, introduced a process to make sure that the expenditure that we're making against those reserves is consistent with the purposes of the challenge plan. And there's a further table set out in the report at the bottom of page 9 and on to page 10, which shows you the commitments at the end of September. A really wide-ranging set of projects that have been funded as a result of applications to the Project Zero Fund. Important, I think, committee to note that both within the council's kind of corporate arena, but also a number of applications that have been really welcomed as being forthcoming from schools colleagues as well. And we know there's a lot of great practice going on in terms of schools. The report also gives an update in terms of the development of a net zero carbon schools as part of Band B of the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme, and then also goes on to describe some of the other work that has been funded from other sources of finance, so including works at leisure centres, and also some of the schools, as well as electric vehicle charging points being installed within council buildings. So we've got a significant amount of activity that is associated with Project Zero, both in terms of capital and revenue funding. The report at the bottom of page 11 then goes on to talk about some of the work that housing colleagues are leading on in terms of WHQS and the retrofit programme as well, and also there's an alignment here with the UK government shared prosperity funding, which has a specific requirement around decarbonisation schemes in the local community, and we know that that funding will also be contributing to Project Zero as well. So I think that gives a summary of what is really detailed report. As Helen said, Appendix A has been redesigned based on the feedback from your committee chair, and Helen and I will do our very best to answer any questions the committee have got.
Thank you, Tom. The audio is quite crackly at the moment. I must admit, I heard most of what you were saying there, and I think other councillors might have struggled a little bit. Hopefully, Democratic will be able to try and do something about that. Yeah, thank you for the report and for the updates. The committee's been looking forward to this one for some time. I'm going to say what I said yesterday on Environment and Regeneration Committee, because I think it's quite important and it's relevant, because we're talking about how we actually monitor and produce the kind of reports and the progress that we need to see. We've got all of these wonderful things going on, lots of activity, lots of actions, and most of them are well underway. But what we don't have from these progress reports is any idea of how much of what we're doing is actually going to impact on our carbon emissions. And I appreciate that's difficult. I know these aren't easy tasks, but because we know we've got 6 years now until 2030, what do we need to do between now and then?
I'm happy for Councillor Franks to go first because he did raise his hand in the chamber.
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me? Had I lost you all?
No, we're still here, Chair. We just wait. Councillor Frank's just trying to use the microphone now.
All right, thank you.
Ed. Ah, there you are. Here you are. Thank you. Well, I must say this this is one of my favourite reports of the quarter. So I'm glad I've overcome the technology. It's very interesting. I have to say I was sad I couldn't pick up Tom's words properly. It was very distorted, but I think I got the gist. So to the actual report, I'm delighted to read of the progress regarding Restore the Thaw, a snappy little title. That's great, and I know we're at early stages, but I very much hope that we can be kept in the loop over the next months and years. On page 7, there's the local flood risk management strategy. Now, that links with page 41, the water auto metering reading item. A number of communities across the Vale have had problems with flooding, and I'm particularly aware of the problems in Dinas Powys. I really don't know what we're going to do with this strategy, because quite bluntly, there has been very little practical help on the ground for the 100 or so houses that were flooded 3 years and 3 weeks ago. Even when money becomes available, there are legal wrangles that seem to prevent measures being implemented to offer some protection to the individual householders. So I'll be pleased to hear Tom's comment there. And he and I have had many a pleasant conversation regarding solar panels. And I need to highlight to committee that it's all very well saying we want to put solar panels on our public buildings, but if the roof of that public building is insubstantial and in need of replacement, well, you can't have one without the other. And it is very frustrating that we have a number of roofs of our community centres that are substandard and need replacing, but they're never a priority. On page 8, net zero, I wonder if one of the officers or the cabinet member, I'd be very pleased to hear from the cabinet member, could give an update on the charging points. I'm not totally clear how many of them are working and where the locations of the working points are. Then on page 9, we come to the troubled saga of the electric bikes. I can't see anywhere in the report that mentions that this scheme is no longer with us and the bikes and the charging points are being withdrawn. I'd like to know what the situation is and when a replacement strategy will be brought forward to us. Skipping to page 23, linked with the 35, there's reference to town community councils and working with town councils. Well, that's only about 4, isn't it? What about all the other community councils? They seem to be ignored. And really, that's not very satisfactory, when in fact it's totally unsatisfactory. And I note and enjoyed reading the red, green, yellow marker system, which is, of course, very common in the world of audit. And I sit on an audit committee elsewhere. And I am a little bit sceptical when there's page after page after page of non-red indices. Only one. Is that really feasible, that we can only have one alarm bell ringing with all the things that we should be doing? The climate change situation is extremely serious, but we seem to be doing okay. So those are a few things I would invite, especially the cabinet member, to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Can everybody hear me and see me now? Can I just ask that question?
Yes, we can.
That's great, thank you. So, Tom, I don't know if you can come in first. I'm not sure if the flood management plan comes into Project Zero, but if there's anything there that you can...
Tom, you're echoing.
And can I just double check that you can see and hear me now?
I can't see you, and I can hear you, but quite badly. Oh, now you're there.
Now you can see me badly, but hopefully hear me a bit more clearly. Okay.
I can't hear either now. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tom. I can't hear you, Tom, and I can't hear you either, Joe.
Okay.
Tom, can I just advise, it might be worth coming out to the meeting briefly and rejoining and see if that sorts the issue out. It may well do. If we can try that first instance.
Joe, could you just talk? Because just now you were very echoey.
Was I? How am I now?
You're okay now, but it's an echo.
I can hear a slight echo when I'm speaking as well, which is not very pleasant to hear myself.
But there is a little bit of an echo, Chair, now. I'm not sure if it's your audio or someone else's audio. But Tom is back on, or he was back on. Okay. Tom, are you able to rejoin now? We've just seen you. Can we try your audio and video, please?
How's that now, colleagues?
Tom, it might be advisable to turn your camera off and see if that improves the bandwidth. The video's just lagging, it's just freezing. It might be worth just going on to audio only if you can.
No idea.
Tom, are you still online, please?
Hello, Tom.
Hello, Chair. How is that?
Oh, that's perfect.
That is much better. Thank you, Tom.
Don't move. Don't move an inch.
I'm not going to move, and I'm going to try my best to answer the questions really quickly from Councillor Franks to make sure that I can go through them. The flood management strategy is a part of Project Zero, but is not an area that I've got any detailed knowledge. But with his permission and yours, Chair, I'll obviously undertake to go away and get some more information in terms of the flood management strategy, and perhaps it's something that I know that Councillor Franks has asked a question on previously as well. Might be useful for me to make sure that the next time we bring this report to your committee, that I do have somebody that's got that specialist knowledge and can answer those queries in detail. In terms of the issue around PV panels on roofs, Councillor Franks is absolutely right that when we're looking to install those kinds of things, that we do need to make sure that roofs are appropriate, both in terms of their structure but also in terms of the orientation. And sometimes that, yes, additional work is required in order to be able to do that. And with a limited amount of capital funding, we always have to go through a process of prioritisation in terms of what we can invest in. That's not to say that our community centres and other community buildings aren't a priority. It's just that there are sometimes other competing priorities that we need to consider as well. In terms of the query Councillor Franks raised around electric vehicle charging points, I'll get some details of those sent out to committee members. I understand that they are on our website, I think, but I want to double check that, and I'll make sure that the information on those charging points is made available to committee as quickly as possible. We are looking actively at how we can make available the charging points within council office car parks, in addition to those that we're putting on the street, so as to maximise the amount of people who can get access to those charging points. Councillor Franks then asked a question around the electric bike scheme. The report that you've got in front of you covers the period up until the end of September, and as Councillor Franks said, the electric bike scheme has been withdrawn across Cardiff and the Vale due to issues that were experienced within the city. And I know my colleagues are working with colleagues in Cardiff Council to actively consider what alternatives there are. So I can get the latest position and communicate that to members after the meeting as well. Councillor Franks is right about the important role that community councils make in the Vale of Glamorgan. They are an absolutely integral part to Project Zero. We're very fortunate in the Vale to have 26 town and community councils, so a large number of community-based ones. And we have a regular liaison meeting with all of those as part of the PSB arrangements that we've got in place. And over the last year, we have discussed climate change with colleagues from right across the Vale in terms of town and community councils. And there are some schemes that are underway within those community councils, as well as the 4 towns. And then finally, in terms of the RAG status, it's really useful to get the feedback from committee. I know Helen in her introduction said that this was the first time that we've used that RAG status in order to try and respond to committee's feedback. I'm hoping that it's useful to provide an indication as to the progress. What we've put the status against is, have we achieved what we set out to achieve within the 6-month period that the report covers? And because this is the first time that the committee is seeing the report in this format, I suppose it would probably be useful for me to draw attention to the final right-hand column of that appendix, which sets out then the actions that we intend to take over the next 6 months that we would then be ragging our status against when we come back to committee. It is something that I think we need to continue to develop our response to in how we report this. This is intended to give you an indication, how have we progressed in the last 6 months against what we said we're going to do. And I suppose what we do need to do then is read that against our overall carbon emissions figure, which each year that we're building up that data is giving us more of an indication as to how we're progressing in terms of the plan. I think that was the questions that Councillor Franks asked, but if I've missed anything, it'd be great if you could remind me.
That's great. Thank you, Tom, and thank you for persevering. It's just quite testing environment this evening for everybody. Just before I bring Councillor Carroll in, because I fear that when I was having my earlier monologue, nobody heard me, so I'm going to start again. Awfully sorry. So I said this yesterday in ENR, and I want to say it again because I think it's quite important. There are 80 steps within this challenge plan. They're all, excellent initiatives. We're progressing, which is what the RAG rating shows. But there isn't anything within that kind of like correlates to a reduction of carbon. And I think I've said this before. We've got 6 years to 2030. Along that journey, along that roadmap, we want assurance as a committee of how far we are. And I know that's hard. I know that's really hard. But that's what I feel is missing from that just connection with the reductions. And certainly with our stretching budgets and going forward, what tasks and what actions we prioritise, we need to know then what that benefit is in terms of carbon reduction, for that to be a kind of like a decision-making factor in what you do and what you don't do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, Chair. And I think there are two pieces of work that will really assist us in that now in the next 12 months. First is getting the carbon management plan that we'll be bringing forward now in the spring. Work is concluding on that, and we are looking at specific targets and steps that we can see to be able to quantify the reduction that we would see in carbon, and that will look at the operation of the council's assets, so those scope 1 and 2 emissions. And then the second piece of work is something that we're doing as part of our collaborative arrangements with 3 other councils as part of the procurement arrangements with Ardell, is looking at those scope 3, so looking at the supply chain, looking at those activities that have got particularly high emissions factors when we look at the amount of money that the council is spending when we convert that into, in effect, a carbon impact, and looking specifically at what procurement exercises we can do in order to change our practice. And I know this is something that your committee will consider later on in the agenda this evening, but I think it's where it shows the connection between those two things. And so the carbon management plan very much are internal operations, and then that procurement piece, which is where the vast bulk of our carbon continues to be, will help in the second. And then we should see those targets and that data start to feed through into our carbon reporting framework.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to focus on Challenge 10, reduce waste, if that's okay. And in particular, that's on page 39 of the plan. And in particular, step 10.1 regarding the new waste management strategy. Now, I note that no risks and barriers are listed for quarters 1 and 2. Is that correct?
Tom, I'm not sure whether you all have the information here, because this might be another directorate. Are you still there, Tom? Can you respond?
With regard to...
Oh, he's here. I think he's here.
My apologies, Councillor Carroll. I clicked off the request to speak button. Thank you for the question. In terms of the risks and barriers that the Directorate had identified, they haven't identified in terms of the they haven't identified any risks or barriers within this document in terms of that particular step. You can see some information within the covering report. I think Helen mentioned in terms of the change around residual waste and recycling collection rates over a number of years, but I can certainly get some more detailed information if you've got a particular query that you'd like me to raise with colleagues.
Yeah, the only reason I ask that is because I have raised this with officers both privately and indeed in committee on previous occasions regarding the impacts that moving to 3 weekly collections has had, particularly on environmental health impacts potentially, and also with regard to communal waste areas that we've seen several instances in my own ward, and I'm assuming it's happened elsewhere because I've seen communal waste areas where there's been a considerable build-up of waste. Now, clearly there is a risk associated of that if, as a result of that policy change, regardless of the reasons for that change, be it cost-saving or for environmental reasons, clearly that is a potential risk, and I think it would be beneficial to have it highlighted, particularly since it's now been announced that they're moving to 3 weekly collections for communal waste facilities, despite the fact that the existing problems don't seem to have been addressed.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. I can certainly undertake to get some more information in terms of the impact that providing source segregated facilities within those communal areas, and then the move to 3 weekly refuse collections will have, and we'll put some further information in your next updated report. But I'll get some updated information in the meantime, Councillor.
Thank you. And one final point on that as well, Tom. Obviously, there's an emphasis on working with the community. I would suggest that that may well need to be reviewed, because the impression I get from feedback from residents is if they report an issue regarding a waste collection, be it through the contact centre or through myself, they don't get it dealt with in a timely manner. And I would suggest that perhaps if we're going to emphasise working with the community, there does need to be a better response rate from the council's point of view on that.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. I think we've all got different experiences of this. I had a resident contact me over Christmas, and my response from the contact centre and the waste collection team was slightly different. But as I say, we've all got a different opinion on these things. Tom, would you like to come back in?
Certainly, and we take all feedback really seriously, yeah. and I'll have a conversation with my colleagues in customer relations to understand what's the latest position in terms of the volume of inquiries and the handling time and getting back to residents to make sure that they're dealt with. So no, it's useful feedback always to have. Thank you.
I think it's quite helpful that you've appointed 3 recycling officers, though, or we have rather, haven't we, to work with communities certainly in areas where they might not be that keen on recycling, and that can only be a good thing, as well as the monthly audits on the contaminated waste. So hopefully that's going to help going forward too, isn't it? Councillor Hanks, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Just 2 quick things, really. I was just going to say I thought the climate change, the IDEV course, was good basic information. And also, could you enlarge and let us know when Emma Reid is doing the report? Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can. We can.
On the electric cars and the carpool, would you have information on which scrutiny committee that's going to, please, Tom?
Thank you, Councillor Hanks, and thank you for the feedback on the member training module. That's really useful to know, and I should have highlighted in my presentation earlier actually that we will be looking to arrange a couple of further sessions for elected members where we can get into some of the detail around the carbon emissions as well. So that IDEV course was not the only opportunity for for us to do some work with elected members to support you in your roles. I will double check with my colleague Emma, but my understanding is that that would be the Environment and Regen Committee, but I will double check and come back to you, Councillor Hanks.
Lovely. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chair.
That's great, thank you. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tom, and thank you to Councillor Franks for covering most of the points I was going to cover. You're welcome. So leaves me with one. So it's fulfil our responsibility to future generations section. Imagine my amusement when I saw the RLDP in that. So I do wonder how 1,000 new houses, over 1,000 new houses, in an area with very poor public transport is going to affect our carbon footprint in the Vale. 2,000 cars plus. And please don't come back with the train station. I've looked everywhere for it. I haven't been able to find it. And the money for the feasibility study hasn't even been allocated yet. And the jobs, according to the Employment Land Survey, are on substantial lead times. Substantial. They can't even give a date. So yes, please, let's see how we affect our carbon for our future generations.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. Tom, I don't know if there's much that you can say about the RDLP. It's a debate for another committee, I would imagine, but please.
You're absolutely right, Chair. I make a foray into lots of areas of the council's activity, but planning is not my background or speciality. So with Councillor Haynes's permission, I'll get some information around the environmental impact elements of the RDLP. We can provide that to committee separately.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes.
Thank you. Councillor Goodjohn.
Thank you, Tom. You've hit on a lot of points that I wanted to raise, and particularly on support with training for members and potentially staff as well. I think Councillor Carroll focusing on waste, which is 0.8% of our carbon emissions at a time when we are 6 years away from our deadline from hitting net zero to score political points, is an exact demonstration of this. And additionally, with Councillor Haynes' points on the replacement local development plan, there were so many complaints 2 days ago about rents being raised in the public sector by 6.7%. I asked Councillor Haynes if he has ever seen the rent of the private sector. The rent of the private sector that we can decrease with supply of housing that is low carbon or no carbon at all, and housing that can support good quality housing that can support our future generations. So I thank him for making a mockery of that. On to my original points, if I may ask some questions. I thank you so much for the session support for members. I think that's a really good point going forward and targeting what exactly is our largest proportion of carbon emissions, so we can target the most effective means of reducing emissions first. I think that's going to be an eye-opener for all of us involved. I wanted to ask around the local area energy plan that you spoke about earlier. What consultation has been done so far with town and community councils? I know it's going to the voluntary sector joint liaison committee in the future once it's done, but have you spoken at all to town and community councils to get involved?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. My colleague Natasha in the Place Directorate is leading that work in terms of the area energy plan, and I know that there is a significant amount of consultation involved in the process for developing that, both in terms of public sector and private sector partners. I'll get an answer in terms of the involvement of town and community councils for you, and an update on the stage that we're at with the local area energy plan in the next couple of days.
Thank you very much, Tom. That would be very interesting to see. If I can make two more questions before I go. Firstly, can I ask around the replacement local development plan, what from the decarbonisation point of view, what kind of engagement have you had from the planning department? I'd be really interested to know how involved they are, how engaged they are with attempting to make the replacement local development plan as carbon sound as possible. I know at the Environment and Regeneration Committee yesterday, there was concerns being raised around in England that the UK government is refusing to allow local councils' development plans from being any more ambitious, any more restrictive regarding carbon targets than the national law, the national guidance, and concerns that if that were to happen here in Wales, that would greatly constrain the work being done. So how engaged has the planning department been with this process as we lead up to the development of the new plan?
Thank you, Councillor. Good job. The planning department are leading, obviously, on the RDLP, and they are very well represented in terms of the Project Zero programme board. We've discussed at that board on a number of occasions the planning considerations associated with Project Zero and the various issues that need to be finely balanced when considering those things. And we are doing some exploratory work as to what's the best way of balancing those as part of the RDLP. Perhaps in the further information that I'll be asking colleagues about in response to Councillor Haynes's points and questions earlier, I can get you a bit more information in terms of how that is happening on the ground, so to speak.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
If I may make a final point, then councillors who may have been following will know that I've been greatly engaged with the retrofit plans that have been going forward for a number of months now, including with the business plan. The latest Welsh Housing Quality Standard has been pushed back 4 years from 2030 to 2034 to reach an energy efficiency EPC level A for all our public sector homes. And additionally, we are still required as a local authority to reach net zero by 2030. It's come to my attention that the calculation that we use, that we're looking at today, does not include tenant energy use within that calculation. And so I'm quite concerned that between those two deadlines, we are being disincentivized from investing in our public sector homes, in retrofitting as a local authority by the Welsh Government. And in Homes and Safe Communities, I raised this. I wonder if the committee would allow, from these concerns, that we to write to the Climate Change and Infrastructure Committee in the Senate to take a look at this further and raise concerns about it, because I think it would be a great shame if we are disincentivized from investing in our public sector homes to lower energy bills as quickly as we reasonably can and efficiently can, because if we don't hit our 2030 deadline, there is great consequences from that. And if that's not included within the 2030 deadline, then it's simply not going to be a priority of the local authority in comparison to our statutory requirements from the Welsh Government. So I would hope that the committee would support me in doing that, because I have great concerns that that will be the case.
Tom, are you still there? I think we lost Tom. No, he's here.
I am here. The request to speak brings me on and off when other colleagues are speaking. So I'm hoping that I'm getting better with the technology as the evening goes on. Absolutely, and I know Councillor Goodjohn, you had asked if a colleague from the housing team could be here this evening, and my apologies that we haven't been able to get somebody to be part of the meeting this evening on WHQS and the retrofitting. I think the rationale for energy use within council homes not being counted towards the 2030 target is obviously the council doesn't control what energy use our tenants make, but we are hugely supportive of trying to decarbonise those homes that we provide, and that's the reason for including within the HRA business plan a significant amount of committed work around energy improvements and decarbonisation of the stock, as well as the homes that we continue to build within the Vale of Glamorgan having better credentials in terms of their energy use. So that would be the kind of update that I would have for Councillor Goodjohn's points.
If I can say quickly, thank you so much, Tom. And at no point was I questioning the Vale's commitment to retrofitting, to supporting our residents, because it has been very great. And in the business plan, the amount of investment is incredible. It's just that if local authorities are being disincentivised from doing that, I wonder what that means on a Wales-wide level. So that's all that comes from. But I thank the Vale very much and your team for how much is being done, because it is a huge amount of investment. Near £70 million in 10 years is incredible.
Thank you, Tom. And I'm sure that the Vale is going to continue to retrofit as quickly as possible, so that we hit our own net zero target, won't we? So that's I don't think that's something that we would question at all. Anybody else got any other questions? Councillor Johnson.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Great. I'd like to start by saying I think that Councillor Franks seconded the suggestion from Councillor Goodjohn to write to the committee or to the Minister, was it?
To the Committee on Climate Change and Infrastructure. Okay, right. Yeah, so
okay, sounds like a sensible suggestion to explain our concerns for those changes. Amongst the things I have here, I'd like to agree with Councillor Prothero and Chair regarding the report in two ways. One thing, it's a bet by adding the GRAG rating, which wasn't there before. It helps us to follow developments amongst the number of work streams in the plan. But again, within the boundaries, the climate change challenge plan, it's one thing to see and to go through the activities that the council has decided to do and to see which impact they're having. There's a number of things. Biodiversity, for example, is great, but where does this all fit in with the decarbonisation challenge? I note. So there are a number of things. The explanations help us to understand what's going on, but as Councillor Haynes noted, and Councillor Franks before that, there are a number of things which perhaps don't go against some of the objectives. So when I see things like complaints or concerns around the farm model delays, well, the planning committee rejected the farm model because of the impact on the environment. So I don't know why this is being raised as a concern in relation to what's happening. Again, work is, of course, referring to Q1 and 2 of this year, and again we're in January, so we're 4 months behind the last activities to happen. So it's almost a historic document. But so hopefully, as this team is strengthened, it will come to us at a quicker pace, and to the Committee for Environment and Regeneration. Just a couple of points in the context of some of the comments before about next bikes pulling out and so forth, but there are things here which follow on in Q3, and we don't have it. And there's attention because this helps us to follow what's going on in a broad number of activities. But again, it's nice to have more up-to-date information. Just to note in relation to a couple of points. One was, I don't know if somebody on the call or Tom or Helen can give an update on the local nature partnership which we have, which because there was delay in Welsh Government funding, so just like to know the activities which were expected for Q3 have happened, because I think there are a number of things in Q3 around biodiversity measures, and also just to note a point about the lampposts. Because there's been complaints about the council removing old lampposts in the Vale from the Victorian period without looking at the loss of our heritage. So just to make sure that this doesn't happen without us knowing beforehand, and have a discussion around whether it's possible to preserve any of that in any way. And of course, it won't be a Vale Council meeting without me drawing attention to the Barry Docks exchange. I'm very pleased to see the big bug hotels and green roofs, but I'd like to see more buses to support local transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Tom, would you like to come back?
Yes, certainly. I think Helen will be able to give a little bit of information in terms of that local nature partnership query, Councillor Johnson. And thank you for the questions. In terms of Barry Docks, the last point and the lampposts replacements, I'll take those queries away and get the service departments to give me some information that I can share with colleagues. Thank you as well for the comments around the introduction of the RAG status and the format of the document. It genuinely is really helpful to get committees' feedback to help us shape these reports so that they're as useful as they can be for you. I can certainly undertake that we will be producing the report more quickly. We want to give these to you in as timely a way as we can. It does take us a little bit of time to pull them together, as you'll appreciate, but certainly a 4-month window is not something that I'd want to be doing. So we will look to quicken the pace of reporting so that it's a bit more timely and not quite as historic as you described. And thank you for the feedback that we can act on. But I don't know whether, Helen, if you could give a little bit of an update in terms of the nature partnership.
Can you hear me okay? Yes? Yeah.
Oh, I think we've lost her. Come back, Helen. There she is.
Okay. Am I back? Am I back now?
Back in the room.
Yeah, just to echo what Tom was saying about the reporting. Yeah, Susanna and many colleagues, we're working very much to try and keep enhancing this process for the progress reporting, to speed it up, make it more timely, and, you say, to enhance the information that's put in front of members so that you can see that overview. So, as you say, hopefully each stage you're getting more the information in the way you want it presented. So, so thanks for the feedback on that. With regards to the local nature partnership, I'll pick up with the team to be able to give you a little bit more information on that. But yeah, we are working really closely with them. They are doing quite a lot of work now on the Nature Recovery Action Plan, which they recently reported to the Public Services Board as well. to kind of get partners much more involved in terms of some of that work as well across the public sector. And we're much more talking about that nature recovery element and bringing in their expertise and their challenge as well within that. So so certainly we should be seeing some good progress there as well. But I will pick up with them in terms of some of the detail that you've asked for there, Councillor Johnson, and make sure that we can provide a fuller response on that. But yes, I think we're quite confident in terms of the work that is now being taken place through that means as well, and the support that they're giving us.
Thank you, Helen. Anybody else then? Again, we've had a really good discussion on this particular topic. No? Okay. That's
Chair,
wonderful.
Councillor Franks
Let's-
wishes to speak.
Oh, right. Okay. Councillor Franks.
Councillor Franks having technical difficulties again. I think we'll use Ian's microphone for this.
Can I endorse what you've just said? It's been an interesting debate. I am a little bit disappointed that no cabinet member seems to be available to respond. I don't know if any of them are in the meeting, but that is a disappointment. Can I ask, how do we? Well, we will capture our discussions through our excellent staff taking minutes, but will we be transferring that to Cabinet and expect a response? I think that's our usual practice, but I'm just double checking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. I was a bit confused then because I read the heading and it said Johnson, and I'm looking at Councillor Franks. So I don't see that our processes have changed at all just because we're using e-conference. Our comments are reported by Democratic Services, and they go along with any recommendations up to Cabinet for their consideration, same as always. So so that's our process, isn't it? Anybody else want to make a comment or speak before we move to recommendations?
Chair, Councillor Franks wanted to thank you for that response.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay. Let's move to recommendations then. So the first recommendation was that the committee note this progress detailed in the report and Appendix A in relation to the challenges within the climate change challenge plan. Hard to say that. Number 2 was that the committee note the council's 2022-2023 carbon emissions. Number 3, that the committee note the RAG rating of progress from April 23 to September 23 in Appendix A. That the committee note the funding available in reserves and the projects awarded funding to date. 5, that the committee refer this report, the comments, to Cabinet to be considered alongside any comments from E&I yesterday. And also then that the committee recommend to Cabinet this report is distributed to all elected members, members of the Public Service Board and all town and community councils for their information. We had 2 further recommendations from committee tonight that we'll just include. The one was the motion raised by Councillor Goodjohn, which was that we write to the Minister of the Senedd about the changes to that date from 2030 to 2034 and properties being net zero and retrofitted. And then the second recommendation, which a number of us have mentioned tonight, is that the future reports provide assurance to committee on the contribution to the carbon reduction that all of these steps are actually achieving, so that we can get a better idea of our progress for the next 6 years to 2030. And I think that's it. So if we can move, I would be really grateful.
Can I quickly say, just to say, we're writing to the Committee on Climate Change and Infrastructure, but provided that I would move
Not
both.
the Minister for Climate Change.
No, the committee. But no, I'm happy to move those, Chair.
And Chair, I would second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hamilton. Right then, let's move on to agenda item 6. That's report of the Director of Corporate Resources. This is the review of the procurement strategy and policy. This is the task and finish group that we've all looked forward to starting up. Mark, do you want to take us through this, or shall I? How do you want to do this?
I'm happy to either, Chair. Is entirely happy. If you want to take a lead, that's fine, or I can just go for the general points of the report.
You start, and then I'll join in
Yeah,
as we go along.
no problem. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, committee. The main purpose of this report is to appoint the membership of a task and finish group and to approve the scope of the group. Just as by way of background, the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee identified as one of its options for a task and finish group in May of last year to review the new procurement policy, strategy, processes and documents. With regards to embedding circular economy principles throughout the procurement life cycle in order to maximise social value and decarbonisation outcomes. As part of this consideration was given to set up a task and finish group in order to achieve this. It was subsequently agreed at the meeting of the Scrutiny Chairs and Vice Chairs group on the 5th of September of 2023 that the review of the new procurement policy and strategy would be chosen as the first to be undertaken by the relevant task and finish group. This report subsequently asks the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee to confirm membership of the proposed task and finish group from members of this committee. And the report also asks the committee to approve the proposed scope, which includes aspects such as meeting sessions required and timescales for review. We also ask that subsequent reports produced by the Task and Finish Group will be referred back to the Scrutiny Committee for consideration, and any recommendations or comments that are brought be approved and referred on to Cabinet. That's a bit of a whistle-stop tour there. I will obviously refer members to the appendix of the report, which sets up the scope and remit for their consideration as part of this report tonight. And I'll leave it now for the Chair to add any further details.
Thank you very much, Mark. Yes, so the committee. So today we're looking at interest, really, in being part of the Task and Finish group. We are focusing on what we can do within the existing procurement strategy, the arrangements with Ardell, what policies are in place now, what actually people do when it comes to commissioning of goods and services, how they specify goods, how they evaluate goods, looking to find opportunities and to embed circular economy and social value outcomes, maximize social value outcomes throughout this process. The reason why this is so important and quite exciting, not just from my perspective, because procurement is something I've done for a very, very long time, but 88% of our carbon emissions are scope 3, and scope 3 are procured goods and services. So you can see how important it is to be able to tackle this, and it isn't just a process of how we buy things. It's going right back to the beginning and looking at what it is they need to buy, how they specify, how they design waste out of specifications in some circumstances. So it's quite an interesting and important piece of work, I can assure everybody. So I think at this point, it's questions, it's who would be interested, and over to everybody to raise whatever it is you'd like to say.
Councillor Franks is about to come on.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Franks.
Can I say I'm delighted at these proposals, and I'm even more delighted to propose Ian Johnson from our group. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Anybody else? Councillor Hamilton.
Yes, Chair, I'd be delighted to take part in the exercise. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you. I think Councillor Carroll, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Before we nominate a member from our group, would you be able to provide a summary of when the group is likely to meet? Because obviously, if it were to clash with regular commitments, that could be a problem. So it may be beneficial to know that before putting somebody forward.
Well, to be honest with you, I want us to try and fit around everybody. So I think we first of all need to know who would be interested, and then we can look at moving forward with the first meeting to fit in with everybody's commitments. Because I know we're all on so many different committees. So I think that's the only way to play it, because we won't just be having one meeting. We will need to have a couple, and then there'll be different work streams that maybe individuals might be tasked with, or we might be doing as a group. We need to get some experts in, and I think for the first meeting, I'd like to try and involve one of the lecturers from the Circular Economy Community Initiatives, because I think it's really important for everyone to have a common understanding of circular economy and social value in the context of procurement, and have and see case studies of where this can go. Because I appreciate, people might have an academic and rudimental understanding, but in this context, it will make more sense to people. So I think for us, it would be better to find out first who would be interested, and then let's work to see when we can meet for the first meeting. If that's okay, Councillor Carroll.
No, that's fine, Chair. With that in mind, I will propose my colleague Councillor Haynes, but we reserve the right to change our representative as and when required. Thank you.
I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think it would matter if that happens. Councillor Hanks.
Thank you, Chair. As the only Lantern Major First Independent, I think I'd better put my name forward.
Oh, thank you. I promise you won't regret it. It will be interesting. It will be interesting.
A learning curve.
I know. Okay.
Can I
Councillor
propose?
Goodjob.
Sorry, can I propose you, Chair, on the committee as well, just to confirm?
Oh yes, thank you. Yes. Am I not allowed? I can't propose myself, can I? It doesn't work like
Well, I
that.
suppose you can. I just did it first.
Yeah, you can, Chair. It's not a problem. It's.
Yeah.
Can I quickly say as well that this task and finish group, along with the carbon reduction management plan, I think are the two most important points in our carbon reduction journey, if I can use that word, because these are the two plans that will have the biggest impact on our carbon emissions. And if we are to hit net zero, these two need to be watertight. The plans that come out of both of these exercises need to be as close to perfect as we possibly can if we are going to hit our 2030 target. So thank you all for getting involved.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Hi, Chair. If you are still looking for names, and then I want to echo fellow councillors and saying that this project, the Task and Finish group, sounds superb. And as the echo Councillor Goodjohn's comments, it's a critically important and something that I think that we should all be embracing. So if you are in need of another number, then I'm happy to put forward myself.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I mean, I think there's 6 people now who have shown an interest tonight. But if any other members are thinking, oh, I might like to do this too, then I don't know, Mark. Do we have to have the decision made today, or could it be something that people might think about in the next day or two?
Ideally, Chair, if we could make a decision today, at least on initial numbers, so we've got a group that we can move forward with then. And obviously, if other members are interested in joining, well, we can look at that. But as long as we've got the main members, that's important.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. And we don't have any absences tonight, so everybody has had an opportunity, haven't they, to say. Councillor Hanks, you wanted to speak?
Could you just recap on the 6 that we've got so far, please, Chair?
Yes, so there's myself, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Hamilton Haynes, and Councillor Lovelock-Edwards, and yourself, Councillor Hanks.
Do we need Councillor Goodjohn, as he is very passionate
And
about it and knows a lot? I don't know whether that would be whether he'd be willing to sit on it.
I would be happy to sit on it. However, it's up to everyone else if they decide if 7 is the right number and the balance between political parties. But that's I don't mind being on. If people are willing to have me on, I'd love to do it. But it's up to everyone to make a joint decision.
Okay, well, I'd like to propose you if there's a seconder, and if not,
yes, of course, yes, that's great. Thank you ever so much.
I've now changed to looking like very much like Chris Franks. We have to move the.
Lucky you.
Oh dear. Okay, that's so now we've got 7. We've got 7 people interested.
If you don't mind, Chair, sorry, I appreciate that it's a task and finish group is not political, but you know, I feel a little bit, you know, uncomfortable at having something which does have a majority of one party on it. I mean, it's I don't know if the Labour group want to have a quick chat amongst themselves as who they think are the. I mean, I think 3 members shows that you're interested, but I mean that's only because I think everyone else has been polite in putting one forward. So I'm just, you know, just noting a little measure, a modicum of, you know. This is not political, and we've got 4 different groups here, so you know.
And at this stage, everybody is able to nominate themselves or nominate somebody on their group.
Can I propose then that Councillor Prothero and Councillor Hamilton as the first 2 to nominate be our representatives, and we will take Councillor Johnson, Councillor Haynes and Councillor Hanks as the members of the committee then.
How does Councillor Lovelock Edwards feel about that? Are you okay if we do that?
Perfectly fine with it. At least I'm being polite around my thoughts. I am not concerned, but as Councillor Johnson had already was at pains to state that, you know, it's not a political group, so the numbers from each party shouldn't factor. It should be about the passion and commitment that the individuals have to support in the group, and the skills and knowledge and sort of experience that and diversity, may I add, that people bring to the table. So I just wanted to make that point, that this hasn't been you know, sort of driven by any political ideology, just I think a sincere wish to acknowledge that this is a critical project that needs to be looked at, and that's why I put myself forward.
Yeah.
I'd like to second that statement as well, please, Chair.
Absolutely.
Chair, if I could bring a bit of comfort here, any reports and any discussions will be brought back to this committee before it goes anywhere anyway.
Yes, they will.
So all members will have the opportunity to really look and scrutinise this report at committee. I just wanted to make that point to remind members.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make as well, Karen. That the work that we do isn't going to go anywhere until this committee approves it anyway. So, but you know, I do take Councillor Johnson's point. So if Councillor Lovelock Edwards is happy to stand down, that would leave us with Councillor Haynes, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Hanks, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Goodjohn, and myself. Does that sound better for everybody? Can I have a hand to move that? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Drake. And a seconder?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Haynes. So that's smashing. So we've got our task and finish group members. I think the next thing we'll need to do then is to arrange a date in the next week or so where we can meet for our first scoping meeting. How would people like to do this? Would you like to do this online, or would you like to meet somewhere? What what's the general consensus for this? Councillor Hanks?
Yeah, Chair, I'd like to do it, but I'd rather go back to Teams. This is
okay.
This Easy Conference Connect doesn't seem to suit everybody. It's the last couple of meetings have been very challenging. So if we can go back and do it on Teams, I'd prefer to do it on Teams. That would be my preference.
Sure. So we'll do the first meeting as a Teams meeting where we just discuss the scope, where we're going to meet, how this is going to work, who's going to do what, and we'll take it from there. And then we can have everybody's ideas at that point as well. If that's okay. Smashing. Right then. Well, we've moved that particular item. So.
No, sorry, Chair. Councillor Haynes wanted to speak, I think. Bear with me, sir.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Councillor Haynes?
Okay, I was just going to say I prefer in person, but if you want to do Teams the first meeting, as is, it's okay.
We will have to have some in-person meetings with this. I think there will be stuff that together we'll need to look at. Certainly, if we are out and about, we have to do some interviews with some of the buyers and the commissioners. We won't be able to do everything remotely in this particular case. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you. Quickly then, we'll just go through the recommendations that were standard with this, which were the committee confirms membership of the task and finish group, which we have done, and that the first meeting of the group be undertaken as soon as practicable. And we will come back with a date to everybody as soon as possible to see that we can secure something. 2, that the approved scope and timescales for the review be approved as attached at Appendix 1. At the moment, there is the scope, but the timescales will probably be something that we will talk about once we get going and we work out what needs to be done, where we have to go to do this, and so it will be kind of like a living document, a living timescale as well. I think you'd have to say. And 3, that the reports of the task and finish group will be referred to the Corporate Performance and Resources Committee for consideration. As Karen had said, before they'll go anywhere else, they'll come back to our committee. So can I have another hand then to move on that, and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn.
I'm willing to move that, Chair.
And thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Brilliant. So then, moving swiftly on to agenda item 7. This is the report of the Director of Corporate Resources again. This is our third quarter scrutiny recommendations tracker 2023-24 and also our updated committee forward work plan for 23 to 24. There have been a couple of movements from the December meeting because we had an awful lot on there. So you've got your carbon management plan. I think now we're going to be seeing that in the March meeting. The Oracle implementation, which we have all been looking forward to for some time, that's been moved now to February. And I think there's also an outstanding unacceptable actions by citizens and social media policies, which I think was before this session. I think it was April 22, wasn't it, that was looked at, and that's still going to be reviewed. I don't know if, Mark, there's anything else that you want to reflect on in here?
Just to let members know that we've made some updates around the scrutiny topic form, which the members of the public can use. So there is a new link to that, which I believe is in the report. And we also have in here as well the new scrutiny public participation guide as well, which has been recently updated, and there's a link to that in here as well, Chair. Other than that, it's the usual. We have a number of actions listed in appendices A to E to the report. The various stages either completed or still ongoing, and obviously we've got our updated forward work programme schedule. Again, a living document. There has been some slippage. There are some items that will be coming hopefully into February's meeting, though also to make a note to members, we will be having 2 meetings in February. We're having a special meeting on the 15th now as part of the consultation process around the budget, as well as our regular meeting on the 21st of February to deal with our regular business. That way, obviously, members have a bit more time to consider items, and we're not sort of shoehorning items into one meeting. So basically, it's our usual request for members to endorse the actions and also to endorse the forward work programme, subject to any comments they wish to make. Chair, I hand over now to yourself and committee for questions. I believe Councillor Johnson and Frank's had their hands up. Sorry, it's Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, sorry, Chair. Just we have an uncompleted recommendation from March 2022, which is about service plans, target setting to the annual delivery plan, and amended, probably by either myself or Councillor Carroll when we were discussing the annual development plan in 2 years ago, and the system has been changed, I think, quite substantially since then. So I'm not sure what it is that what more changes is going to be likely to take place. I'm sure Mark will be able to tell us.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Johnson, for the question. I have put this to obviously the Director of Corporate Resources, and I think he felt it should stay ongoing because there was talk about further sessions in 2024. I don't know if the
Tom's online.
Yeah, if Tom can come through and just confirm that.
Thank you, Mark. And I'd be more than happy if councillors would like to mark that one as completed. We will continue to offer those sessions, and I've arranged earlier today actually to make sure that we offer a workshop for elected members to help shape how we continue to improve on the reporting of service plans, and we'll also be offering briefings immediately before each of the committees in March for any members who can't make that workshop, just to bring them up to speed in terms of the content. So it was more, I guess, Councillor Johnson, about it being an ongoing process of improvement. But if you're, as a committee, content that we've addressed the initial concerns, it could certainly be marked as complete.
Thank you, Tom. I wasn't part of this committee then. It looks like business as usual to me. Which also Councillor Johnson has brought up. So yeah, I think it's something that can be removed. Thank you, Councillor Hanks. Oh, Councillor John, I think you're before.
I think it's Hanks first, so we'll let Hanks go.
Sorry, Councillor Hanks.
That's okay, but I do feel it's sort of like a second-class citizen home here, because I think priority goes to everybody there in the room. I might be wrong, but democratic services might by just it's difficult. Mark, I was just wanting to say, really, this report seems to be getting bigger and bigger and longer. I don't know if that's the right way we're heading. And also, uncompleted recommendations, A, B, C, D, whatever, most of them are completed anyway. So it comes under the heading of uncompleted, but then alongside status, they're all completed. So could you explain that, please?
Yeah, just to say, Councillor, in terms of the recommendations, some of those have only recently been completed. So we're just showing that they are now completed. So going forward, in the next iteration of the report, they will come off. Obviously, we have now the Appendix A, which will be coming off as well because that action has been completed. In terms of the size, are you referring to the size of the work programme, Councillor Hanks, or just in general?
Really, Mark.
Right.
It seems to be pages and pages, and every time it seems to get longer and longer. But maybe that's what we've got to have. I don't know.
A lot of it is the work programme, but as you'll understand, we obviously some months we have a lot of sort of statutory reports and other items that come through, so we're really just logging those in. It can be quite a bit of volume. I can see if you've got any suggestions you feel that to make it a bit more streamlined and smaller, we can obviously discuss that in conjunction with the chair. Ultimately, as a document for the committee, if they feel it needs to be more streamlined, we can look to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
I think the points that Councillor Hanksome is making, and they are good points. This is a forward work plan from May 2023. So I guess everything that's gone before is still on there, even though it's gone. You know what I mean? So it adds to the bulk of the report, doesn't it?
Yes.
But you may want to look at it for historical kind of like reasons, just to, you know, remind yourself of what's happened before. I think we just have to just accept that there are pages to this because it is a programme of, you know, of work for the year. Because there may be benefits to keeping all of it. Councillor Goodjohn.
Yeah, can I just reassure Councillor Hanks that the last meeting had a lot of recommendations, I think 4 pages of it, so that may have contributed to this one being particularly long. Apologies for that, but just on the recommendation that has been not been completed, I'm hoping that there will be significant movement with the next corporate plan on scrutiny of service delivery plans, and on particular targets. I think we recommended at the last meeting about focusing on smart targets and having set targets that we can scrutinise a little easier than the current targets that are set not only within service plans but within the overall annual delivery plan. So I'm hoping there's a new recommendation that we can use to see if that measure has been hit rather than the old one. So I totally agree. I think the old one's completed and we'll look at the new one now. And just to update Councillor Johnson that on the PSB update, that's now scheduled for April, as in the report. And we're going to, on the 1st of February, myself and the chair are going to be meeting with the relevant cabinet members for this committee, which I think is almost all of them, to discuss the PSB that's coming to us in April and what we can do regarding it. So hopefully that helps everyone out.
Thank you. Karen, you'd like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the points that Councillor Hanks has raised regarding the new system, it is going to take time for us all to get used to this. It is a hybrid solution, which means that obviously we've got people in the chamber and we've got people at home, which we could not do on Teams, unfortunately. Maybe in the future, but we've got this Easy Connect system, which is in place, and we're all learning, including team members in the team, obviously members. There are a number of user issues, and we have tried to provide as much training on this to everyone, including officers, so that if you're in Teams, for example, please don't have Teams on when you're in a meeting, use an EasyConf. Please don't use your laptop and go into the meeting twice, because some members go into it when they're in the chamber and it's difficult then for the system to correct itself. Please just bear with us all, including members and officers, as we go forward with this, because we've got this hybrid solution. The Welsh language translation service is working really well as well. In most cases, the audio is working, the cameras are working. There are little glitches that are taking place. We are doing everything we possibly can behind the scenes to work with members to if there are issues that they're experiencing. There are also broadband issues as well, different strengths of broadbands in different homes. So, you know, this is all going to move obviously at a pace, because we have said we will be undertaking a number of meetings on a hybrid basis. But I would just ask everybody to bear with us as we go forward. With regard to meetings like Task and Finish, they can be done in Teams. They are not public meetings. Obviously, when it becomes a public meeting, we will go on to the EasyConf solution. But the more you have more experience of using this system, the better it will become. It is difficult. I will go back to Councillor Hanks's point that it appears that when you're in the chamber, you jump the queue as opposed to being at home. It is a matter for a bit of training. It's something we've raised as well. Is it something we can do going forward? But please bear with us. It is working. On screen for the public, it's looking really good. I don't know how many members might have viewed it online, but it's looking really good. And other issues we will take forward, and we are continuing to take forward. But we have a hybrid solution. it is working, and we have Welsh language service. So I just wanted to put a plea in really for everyone to bear with us all when we are undertaking this system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karen. Okay then, so I think unless anybody has any other comments on this scrutiny, the third quarter scrutiny and forward work plan, we'll move to our recommendations then. That was that the status of the actions listed in Appendix A to E to the report be agreed, that the updated forward work plan schedule for 2023-24 attached Appendix F be approved and then loaded to the council website. And I think that was it, wasn't it? So can we move, please, on that?
I move.
Thank you. And second.
Seconded.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Hamilton. That's great. Thank you very much. Swiftly moving on then to agenda item 8, which were any items which the chair has decided are urgent, part 1. You'll be glad to know there aren't any. Agenda item 9, any items which the chair has decided are urgent, part 2, press exclusion. Again, there aren't any. So all it leaves me to say then is good evening to everybody, close this meeting and remind you all that because of the fact that there's the budget consultation and we want to spend a bit of time on that, we've got 2 meetings in February. The first on the 15th, which is a Thursday at 6, and then the second, our normal monthly meeting on the Wednesday on the 21st of February at 6. So thank you for your participation and your patience, and have a good evening.